Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and thank you for joining us for our presentation about why AI fails without marketing operations. Throughout this presentation, you'll find lots of ship references, and we will tie in the metaphor, and hopefully it makes sense as we go forward. But just for avoidance of doubt, I am Matt. My co-conspirator is Joe, and we are from CRMT, one of the UK's leading MorOps and AI consultancies. And we have been doing this for a long time now. And so where we net it out is when we think about AI and the implementation thereof, and why we believe marketing operations should be and is leading the charge, it's simply because of these four things. One, data analytics. We own it, we're responsible for it, and we're accountable for it and its performance. It's ensuring that it is driving your business forward. Two, we own the MarTech stack. We own how they connect, how it is used, how it is implemented. We own the process and governance that drives it, that makes sure that it is maintained and actually gives us the information we need. And lastly, measurement. We hold the keys to the things to show you what the things that are driving your business forward and enable growth. Now, no AI presentation would be complete without talking about the opportunity that it presents, and it does. It will eventually make us more efficient and capable as human beings to do our jobs better and run our businesses more efficiently and help it grow. But despite vendor claims, most companies struggle with implementation, just like they did with MarOps when it came to the marketing automation platforms when they first came in. It's not plug and play. It's the same when it comes to intent data, and the list goes on. Just because they say it's easy doesn't mean that it is, because there is fundamentally things that need to be in place in order to make it work. And lastly, the technology alone does not drive adoption or its effective use. And now that ties in really nicely to some research that Solo did, and that's why we're talking about Solo's paradox, because in the time when computers was first invented and microprocessors were coming into play, a Nobel laureate winner, Robert Solow, did some research between 1943 and 1973 to try and understand whether or not technology had actually delivered on its promise to disrupt the workplace and create a surge in productivity. Between that period, he actually found that there was a drop from 2.9% to 1.1% within that period of productivity. And so that with this promise, did productivity actually lead to a bust for several years when the promise was so much larger? Well, because of his research, is now aptly named Solo's paradox. And we're seeing something similar now. Just recently, the National Bureau of Economic Research surveyed 6,000 businesses executives from across the US, UK, and Australia and Germany to understand the impact of AI on productivity and not jobs out and on employment and output. And among other things, they found that over the past 3 years, they could not actually, or those executives could not actually say that AI had positively impacted productivity despite positive sentiment and investment in those tools. Similarly, the Boston Consulting Group just published in March some research for about 1,500 full-time employees in the US that showed if they used 3 or more AI tools, their productivity plummeted. And if they used AI for complex tasks, it actually led to a 14% increase in mental effort, and in some cases, a 19% increase in mental overload. They aptly called this AI brain fry. But it does lead us to the question of, are we just implementing things that are making our lives harder, and are we doing it properly? Because we are told to do so. And that leads us into our metaphor of the day, which is the ship of Theseus. Now, the ship of Theseus is a classical thought experiment. One of the earliest recollections of that is from a Greek philosopher called Plutarch, where they discussed whether or not if you replaced every plank of a ship, whether or not it is a new ship or the same ship, or if you prefer a more modern day reference, the sugar babes. Now, in real world terms, we have to ask ourselves, what this actually means to us when we think about tools and the implementation of technology in the workplace. If we replace our tech stack with shiny new tools, are we creating a new boat that goes faster, or are we creating the same boat with the same problems? If we train AI on our current data and then we go and update it, refine it, and ultimately replace it, is that still the same AI model that we had in the first place, or does it have a whole new identity? The point of this is to prevent us walking into paradox, and so that we actually do things that make us more efficient and use the tools that actually enhance what we do, reduces mental fatigue, and doesn't cost the earth in the long run. And to do that, we need to think differently about how we put these tools into place. The reality is that there is a very familiar picture where most teams this data is siloed. We still have a lot of processes that are manual rather than automated, and we still have broken attribution, or at least I find it very difficult to pull together attribution and reports to show the benefits of marketing. And all of this adds up to a compounding debt on our martech ecosystem that no amount of AI can fix without intervention. But do not fear, we have the answer, and we have been helping our clients implement it into their global organizations for a while. But before Joe gets stuck into the depths of how we go about doing that, here's some interesting things that we learned along the way. One, have a business case of what you want AI to do and be specific about it. And even if it's just small, what is the business value that it's going to add back to you? And Joe will touch on this in more detail in a bit. Two, AI has no personality. I don't care which platform or Sora or how nice Alexa is to you. The reality is, if you're building this for yourselves, it has no context, it has no narrative. And we need to give it the tools to understand about percentages, we need to understand absolutes, and most importantly, not to agree with everything we ask or when we speak to it. Where possible, keep it vanilla, uncomplicate the complicated. Agentic is just automation. We have to think about data hygiene. Now, this has been a topic for years, but now more than ever, it's becoming an absolute essential. AI needs guardrails. People speak differently, but don't underestimate how long it will take to deliver. And to get into the weeds, I'm going to hand over to Joe to show you exactly how we go about doing this. Joe.
Thanks, Matt. So we said we had the answer. And here it is, it's marketing operations. Now, marketing operations has long since been the driver of good marketing. They set up the tech stack, the processes, the data orchestration, and all of the things that are needed for sophisticated go-to-market motions. Now, if you fast forward to the age we're in now, which is, of course, one of AI, MOPS becomes your ally in adopting AI in a way that's governed, that's secure, and that acts in a way that's appropriate to your business. And all of that's key, because without the context, without the data structure, and without the governance that AI needs, AI-driven projects very quickly become more chaotic than clarifying. And often in their wake leave a big mess to clear up, which very often falls back on marketing operations. So this is where the function comes into its own to help set up the foundations for AI transformation success. So let's talk about what AI needs to be successful. And firstly, and foremostly, it needs to understand your business objectives, which really act as the context within which it can operate. It then needs clean data, firstly. It needs to have systems that are integrated and talking to each other in the right way. And it needs to have processes that are defined. Now, on paper, these things sound quite simple, but anybody that's worked in marketing operations will know that there's a lot of complexity hidden in here. And really, these are the core disciplines that you've got to get right, because they will make or break success. And the reality is that AI acts as an engine that will read and interpret what you feed it, and then output something that hopefully is valuable. So it's a case of, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. So the inputs are incredibly important. And in the context of an AI world, these three things mean something a bit more complicated than they used to. So integrated systems, that doesn't just mean a bi-directional sync between your marketing automation and your CRM platform. It really means aligning those data flows. It means mapping out what AI needs to know about your business and its objectives, and ensuring that that's captured and, importantly, visible across your MarTech ecosystem. And clean data is, again, far more about the data just being clean. It really is about ensuring that it's structured in a way that can be understood by AI, and that it's readable by AI, and is layered in with the context of your business objectives. Of course, it still needs to be clean, and the hygiene needs to be there. But those are some additional add-ons to get right, I suppose, in this era. And then finally, define processes. It's not just setting up an AI policy that nobody reads and it sits up on the shelf and gets dusty. It's about setting up the rules within which AI can operate. And that means looking at what it can access, what it can do with the data, and what does that AI feedback loop look like within your business. So how do you continuously learn and take what AI gives you to enhance what you're doing in marketing? And with these three components, we have formed our very own AI readiness maturity ladder. Now, I think these sort of sessions are always a good opportunity to reflect and ask yourself, where is your ship in the fleet? And typically, there are 4 levels that we see. The first of which is described as reactive. It's a very manual marketing function. There's a lot of gut feel involved when it comes to attribution and marketing performance, and the data's not unified. And everyone who's worked in an environment like this knows how chaotic it can be. Then the next level is more operational. You've got your CRM integrated, you've got some measurement in place, but there are still some silos, and the data quality is improved, but it's still fairly fragmented. And what we see is that a lot of organizations are operating somewhere between these 2 levels. And really, what we should all be aiming for is a scalable operation, which looks like having a unified data model. It looks like having a lead life cycle that is mapped out, agreed, and actually followed. And it looks like a tech stack that's rationalized and governed, without lots of different overlapping tools and integrations that aren't doing what you need them to do. And then really, once you've got that in place, you can aim for this intelligent AI augmented decision-making engine, which is where you can do clever things like predictive scoring, like real-time attribution, and you have that continuous learning and optimization loop that helps you better your performance in marketing with the help of AI. So as I said, many organizations currently sit between the first 2 levels, but in order to dominate in your category in the years to come, aiming for that level 3 to drive on to level 4 is what we should be looking at. But you don't need to rebuild the whole ship at once. That's the good news. There are some 3 non-negotiables that we suggest that you focus on to get started. And the first of which is data foundations. So get that data model right, and really lean in on that CRM and data hygiene, and let that become a real non-negotiable and mindset shift for anybody in the organization that's using or processing data. Then that gives you a single source of truth, which, without that, it's like operating with an arm tied behind your back. And then another sort of, I guess, cultural mindset shift is to think about use cases before tools. So look at the lead life cycle and the journey that your customers and prospects go on with you, and map out the use cases that can be enhanced with AI, and really think carefully about what that looks like before you bring in the tools. And the reason that that's important is that if you try and automate on top of a broken process, that becomes very time consuming and expensive to fix. So you've got to really think out what that looks like before you layer on more complexity and more tools. And then requires investment, right? So think about the metrics that will build your business case, and there are three that are really important. So look at operational efficiency. So can you do more of the same with less? Can you save money? I know I said there's an investment here, but ultimately in the long term, AI should be saving you money. And what's the impact on opportunity pipeline? Are you able to generate more pipeline and influence pipeline as a marketing organization with this capability? So let these principles guide you. It's not just about the technology. It's not just about the data. It is a cultural mind shift as well. And with these non-negotiables, we have built out our own AI adoption framework. And the first step that we suggest that our clients go on is to run an AI hackathon internally. And we did this ourselves at the start of the year. And really, we found what it did was, it galvanized teams into action. It showed them the art of the possible with AI in a safe environment, and it helped teams to understand that it's, yes, it's complicated, but also you don't have to be a developer to make things happen. So that was a real game changer for us, and has been for other clients that I know that have taken this approach. And then before you put this into action and create prototypes, you do need to look at your data and your systems, which will in all likelihood show you some big issues that need to be fixed before you can then look at those high impact use cases and agree what success looks like, and build out those prototypes for AI powered workflows. Now, a little tip for you here: when you do that, try and do it in a production ready environment. And the reason for that is that the prototypes will get you 80% of the way, but that final 20% is often 80% of the work. And if you have to migrate from a sandbox to a live environment, you will find that there's some re-architecting required, which can take a lot of time and slow things down. So once you've got your prototypes rocking and rolling for a time, do review how they're measuring up against your KPIs, and then look at rolling out the top three. And just keep it at three for now. Keep it small, and get those teams educated and enabled on using those three workflows before you then measure the impact on the business and the value that these use cases will provide, before you then go again and look at the next set to roll out. So that's our framework, and we'll show you a case study now that we applied this for. Unfortunately, we can't tell you which client the case study pertains to, but we can tell you that they are a global PC manufacturer. So we'll leave you to come to your own conclusion about which client that might be. So they came to us because they were told to do something with AI, which may sound familiar. And that something was integrating AI capabilities into Domo, to enhance marketing data workflows, improve user experience, and the delivery of insights back to the business. Now, before we could deliver against that objective, there were some challenges that we needed to overcome with the client. So they had no established path to success and enabling teams on AI initiatives because it was their very first initiative. They had a chatbot that was in use, but it didn't do a lot. It was pretty clunky and it didn't understand the company context. They had a whole bunch of data reports, as many enterprise organizations do, but the analysis was left entirely up to the user. And the data sets weren't structured in a way that was AI ready, and they needed manually preparing for ingestion each time, which was very time consuming, as were the manually created reports that were sent to the recipient by a human pressing the button, and then left the analysis up to the recipient, which meant that they weren't all singing from the same hymn sheet, and different interpretations were taken from the data. So what did we deliver against that objective? So firstly, we built out an AI adoption blueprint. And that blueprint looked at things like prompt engineering standards, how you test the AI output for accuracy, and how you test the whole workflow. So that those test scripts. And this has now been rolled out for other AI marketing initiatives as the gold standard approach to delivering these initiatives. We then enhanced their chatbot to deliver that operational knowledge back to the business and enable that two-way conversation between bot and human about the performance. And the really exciting bit was these AI augmented dashboards that we created inside of Domo, which allowed for real-time interpretation of data, that delivered narratives, from the data, which took away that manual interpretation time and allowed the organization to all understand the data and what it was saying in the same way. And then finally, we created these AI-generated automated executive summary emails, which were sent on a regular cadence. And what was the value back to the business, Matt?
So the value was a 20% reduction in the need for team resources. So if we think about Serlo's paradox, we're already solving it by showing how we're adding value back to the business by improving the productivity of the team. Secondly, in terms of efficiency, we saw a 39% increase in productivity simply because they had access to the data they needed in real time. And for everything else, there was the salient results and conversations they could have with the AI tool, which that was then backed up by the dashboard. And then lastly, scalability. We started with the 5% project, and then we started to grow it by including additional data from other business units, which then allowed them to compare analysis and campaigns and identify opportunities and challenges in real time and answer that C-suite question, tell me more about this, when you only have the 1% number, but you can look at it straight away. Now, if you want to get started on this journey, there are 3 core questions you need to ask your team. 1, if there was one project that you could do today that would enhance the business or have the biggest impact on revenue or business value, what would it be? 2, how does your CMO justify the value of AI to the CFO beyond having the mandate to implement it and use it? I think it's a really good question. Again, thinking about how that actually, again, comes back to adding business value rather than adding mental load. And then lastly, if you knew your AI investment would fail because of data, what are the first steps you would take to change that? Because the reality is that is where your journey will start. Now, if you'd like some help doing those things, we are running a competition for an AI hackathon where the team will come together and actually help you build all these things, going through the steps that Joe talked about earlier. And if you'd like a slice of that pie and helping your teams grow with AI, sign up. We'll be happy to support you on your journey. Over to you guys. Any questions?